What was your first job? I wanted to be an astronaut. I mean, travel, adventure, outer space. But I got motion sickness. So I did the next best thing and I got a job at the local grocery store. I started off as a cashier. I worked in the produce department, the deli, and eventually in the meat department. And it would never fail. We were one of those little mom and pop grocery stores that were open late, and people would stop on their way home and they'd come in and they'd wander and they'd come to the back meat department and they'd scan it. And every single time they'd say, "Do you have any?" It could be peameal bacon, it could be sausages, it didn't matter what it was whatever we didn't seem to have is what they wanted. So the butcher and I started kind of joking around about it, saying, why don't they ask for, pork chops? We have tons of those. So we started a bet. And every time we could sell something that we wanted to sell, we'd put a quarter in a jar, and at the end of the night, whoever had the most quarters would end up with both jars. So the one day, it was chicken breasts. Now, just to give you an idea, I'm like 15, 16 years old at the time. There's no internet, and I don't even cook. I mean, my mom does the cooking at home, and she was terrific. I would go into the library, and I'd fumble through books and magazines until I found a recipe that used up whatever it was that we needed to sell that day or wanted to sell that day. And then I'd go to the office, and I'd convince the secretary to make copies for me, and I'd hurry up and I'd go to work. And when I got there, I would get all the other ingredients that went with the chicken breast. So I had a whole meal kit basically ready to go in a little paper bag with a recipe. Hello Fresh 30 years ago. Missed that one. Anyway, it worked really well. I was there from 5 to 10, he was there from 9 to 5 every day, and I was out selling them all the time. So the one day, he stuck around to see what I was doing different. And somebody came in, and the first thing they said was, "What's for dinner, Lorraine?" I said, "Tonight, you're having chicken cacciatore." And I'd give them the little package, and away they went. Next night, he stayed. Same thing. Person after person came in asking me what was for dinner. Beef stroganoff, shepherd's pie, you name it, I had a recipe for it, and I had a whole meal plan and a kit ready to go. So then everybody, you know how it goes, they start giving you advice. You should sell used cars. Oh my God, you're so great at this. You should sell boats. You should sell real estate. And it went on. And then I started thinking, real estate sounded interesting, right? A little glamorous. You tour around homes. You negotiate offers for people. You find buyers for people that want to sell. So I got into real estate at 18 years old. When I graduated, everybody started talking about that first big sale. They couldn't wait to make that sale. I was thinking, wow, I can't wait to be the best in the whole world at this. So I started taking training and reading books and just really got into it. And it didn't take long before I was finishing in the top 1% in everything I did, every single company, eventually becoming number one across the whole country. The average real estate agent sells 4 homes a year. I was selling 100. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of thinking even bigger in your career, even bigger in your goals, and even bigger in your relationships. I remember walking into a classroom and the instructor was putting posters, just blank posters around the room. And I said, "What are those for?" He said, "Oh, you wait and see." He goes, "Everybody in the class is going to write out their mission, vision, and values before the end of the day." The class I was in was called Quantum Leap, and it was for 16 to 28-year-olds, people who wanted to figure out what to do with their lives. I don't know about you, but I would have had a hard time writing that down. So we walked around the room, and I started noticing people coming in, and I started watching the diversity. We had the group that was sitting there with their Starbucks. We had half of a football team, a few stragglers, and people that looked like their parents dragged them there. And as they went on throughout the day, one by one, they started going up and writing down what they wanted to do with their lives, all around the room. And I had expectations of what they'd be, and they were there, right? There was the star quarterback on the football team. There was the dancer, the YouTube influencer, and the billionaire working 4 hours a week. And I started to notice something that I didn't see before and something I didn't expect. Every single one of them wanted to make an impact They wanted to make a difference. I still get goosebumps when I think of that moment. I expected them to just have the basics, but they were all thinking even bigger. So, what is your definition of success? Do you want to make an impact? Is it about recognition and being number one at what you do? Is it about time with loved ones or traveling? Maybe it's about money and financial freedom. You know, we all start off in the beginning and we trade time for money. And once we have money, we start trading it for more time. I met this young guy named Dylan. He was 26 years old at the time. He lived in a duplex that he owned, and he was 6 months into real estate. He kept asking me to coach him. He said, I want to be like you. I want to own a pile of real estate and investment properties, and I want to sell 400 homes a year like you do. He says, please coach me. I said, oh, I don't coach people. He said, why not? I said, I don't want to revisit every week, and we come up with this plan, and every week you come up with an excuse why it's not happening. So he was persistent, so eventually I said, okay, fine. 7 o'clock Friday mornings, give me a call, and we'll get things rolling. I figured 7 o'clock is going to tell me if he's serious or not, right? So the calls started happening, and things were going really great. And then all of a sudden, one day I get a message 2 hours after our call. I'm sorry I missed it. I went out late with the guys, slept in, catch you next week. The following week came, the night before, about 11:30 at night, I get a text. Sorry, dude, I'm out again with my buddies. I'm going to miss the call tomorrow. Catch you next week. The next week comes, 7 o'clock in the morning, I get a message. Hey, pick up the phone. Hey, pick up the phone. And he's calling and calling. And I sent back a message. Hey, dude, sorry, I replaced you. For 9 weeks, this guy was persistent, and he kept calling and calling every Friday at 7 a.m. On the 10th week, the other person missed their call, and I picked up the phone. We got back on track, and he got his spot back. So we kept going with these calls, and one day he said to me, why do you do this? I said, what do you mean? He goes, why do you take time out of your life to do these calls with me? I started thinking, I said, it's because I get a do-over. He says, what do you mean? I said, I've done a lot of great things in my career and in my life, and I've achieved success. However, I've also made a pile of mistakes. And if I can help you get to where you want to go faster, if I can give you a shortcut, the cheat sheets for your video games, same idea, that would be so fulfilling. And being on these calls every week, I feel rejuvenated. I feel alive again. This do-over is just exciting to me. So he says, okay, well, what's your best advice? I said, my best advice? He goes, yeah, if you had the do-over. I said, I would invest more. He goes, tell me more about that. I said, I'd invest more so that I could be financially free sooner. I'd have more time. And I would never have to worry about money. So he said, okay, let's start with that. Let's get that on track. So I said, well, go figure out how much money you need to make so that you can live that life, like the life that you want to live. So he came back to me the next week. He says, I want to own $100 million worth of real estate. He goes, do you think that's possible? I said, absolutely. So I'm not going to tell you that it's not. I know people that have that. So we laid out a plan, and off he went. And guess what? He failed the first year. He only owned $60 million. By the next year, he owned that $100 million worth of real estate. He saw opportunity everywhere. Opportunity to get coached, opportunity for the mentors, opportunity for deals, opportunity in partners. That guy never missed a beat. My friend Mary worked in an office, and one day she met this guy, Dave, that was a new delivery guy. He came in, introduced himself, and off he went. The next day he shows up, and, hi, Mary, I brought you a coffee. Mary's like, thanks, Dave. I appreciate the coffee, but you don't need to buy me a coffee. He goes, oh, no, it's just really great coffee. It comes from a little coffee shop down the street. I'd love to take you there sometime. Mary looked at him and said, Dave, let's just set things straight right now. You seem like a really nice guy, and I appreciate the coffee, but you don't need to do that, and I'm not interested in dating. I live on my own. I've been married, whatever. I'm quite happy on my own. I'm not interested. He goes, whoa, Mary, it was just a coffee. Like, no big deal. See you tomorrow. Next day, hi, Mary. I brought you another coffee. And this went on, right? It was coffee, it was tea, it was flowers, it was a bagel, it was chocolates, it was, you name it, Dave showed up. One day it was a loaf of bread. Mary's like, a loaf of bread, Dave? Like, what's this all about? And he goes, it's just this great little bakery, Mary. I was at the bakery, I thought of you, and I thought, oh, I love their bread. I bet you Mary will love their bread too. You know, Mary, if you want to go there one day, they make a great soup and wonderful sandwiches with that bread. Mary's like, Dave, Dave, buddy, like I told you a long time, months ago, you're a nice guy, I enjoy everything you buy me, but I'm not interested in going out with you. Like, sorry. No worries, Mary. Next day, Dave comes in, all happy. He goes, Mary, do you know what today is? Mary's like, the day you don't ask me out? Oh, Mary, you're so funny. Actually, today marks our anniversary. 5 years ago today was the first time I asked you out. Mary's like, 5 years? Like, Dave, that's insane. He goes, don't worry, Mary. Don't worry, I got a plan. Today's the day you're going to say yes. You're going to say yes to me today. And what we're going to do is we're going to go out for dinner. We're going to spend 2 hours together. We're going to enjoy a great meal at a really nice restaurant. After that, if you don't want to go out with me anymore, like just that one time and that's it, I'll move on. And you can meet me at the restaurant, or I can pick you up, whatever you feel more comfortable with. She's like, Dave, I told you 5 years ago I didn't want to go out with you or anyone. He goes, don't worry, Mary, I got this. She goes, but if I say yes to you, what's going to happen? We're going to go out and you're going to keep asking me. And he's like, no, Mary, I got a plan. He reaches into his back pocket, and he pulls out a contract outlining everything he said. He said, Mary, it's all spelled out here. I signed it. There's a spot for you to sign. This is my written word that I will stop bugging you or asking you out or flirting with you, whatever you want to call it, if you just go out with me for 2 hours. So he slid it over to her. I remember Mary telling me, she goes, like, this guy was brilliant. Like, he knew me. How can I say no to this? So she said, I looked at him and I thought, super nice guy. I got to put him out of his misery. So I signed it and I thought, what's 2 hours in a nice restaurant? So she said, she slid it over. She said, this is where we're going to go. This is the restaurant name. I'll meet you there tomorrow night at 6. Perfect. She showed up at the restaurant. There he was, all dressed up. Flowers, candy, chocolate on the table, of course, the perfect table near the window. So we sat down and we started having dinner. And she said it was lovely. We had great conversation. An hour went by, 2 hours went by, 3 hours went by, and 4 hours. So we ended up, it was such a great night, we ended up moving in together shortly thereafter. So the only regret I have in my life is that I didn't say yes sooner. 5 years were wasted. Dave, on the other hand, talk about tenacity. The guy didn't take no for an answer. He was persistent. He was determined. 5 years he asked her out. Everyone I know that lives an extraordinary life started so by thinking even bigger. They defined what success meant to them. Is it impact? Is it being the best you can be? Is it time with loved ones or traveling? Is it financial freedom? Maybe it's all four. Are you paying attention to the opportunities that are available to you? Do you see them? And are you tenacious? Do you go after what you want? I shared stories with you in the beginning. In that little grocery store, I could have just sold the chicken. I could have just sold it. But I created a whole meal plan and sold more. In real estate, I can do the average. I could have sold 4 properties a year, but I've sold 10,000. My friend could have bought a dozen homes. That would have been incredible. He's 32 years old, he owns over 1,000 units, and he never has to work a day in his life ever again. And what about Dave? Dave could have taken no the very first time. I don't know about you, but I probably would have. But he asked her that day, and the next day, and the next week, and the next month, and the next year. In the end, Dave got the girl. So I suggest that whatever you're thinking, I would highly recommend that you start thinking even bigger. Thank you.